Okay. So, all right. So tier. Okay. Okay. So, not. All right. So the sequencing. So if we just pause this real quick.
Yep.
So sequencing here was actually very important. So if we just scroll back for a second, like
All right. So
10 seconds. Uh, yeah. So one more. Okay, so go through this and we'll just hit pause. So we hit an Alawi and our shop has Skarner in it, right? So,
yeah.
right, so if we pick up the other orb, okay, what we could have done here is we could have just bought Senna Skarner and then had Bruiser frontline with Alawi Skarner and then Senna guaranteed.
Gotcha.
So we didn't even need to sell anything, but then we see the Lulu, right? So we could have had two Bruiser plus Lulu play for trainer, like opener early, right? And we would have had like a much better front line. Um, okay, so rewind. So let's go back to our augment selection here. So why Mystic Heart?
So I took Mystic Heart because I was thinking either Mystic was flexible, and if I was playing Shio it gives me extra Mystic. If I was playing Trainer Siphon, throws an extra Mystic in there along with Mages. And CB2 or CB1, I normally just kind of disregard. I'm not sure if that's the right call, but
Yeah, so actually, in my opinion here, I think Celestial Blessing is kind of the safer and actually, in a sense, better move because Mystic Heart really is only viable if the lobby is playing AP. So this is where scouting becomes very important because if you can see off the rip that people have already made like Shojins and Morellos and stuff, then maybe taking Mystic Heart here is fine. Um, but if the lobby plays more towards Corky, I mean, Mystic Heart is dead, right? Like, we don't want to play,
yeah,
and especially if we don't hit Shio or something like that, or we don't hit the three trainer siphon comp, or we don't have the items to play them, we're kind of then stuck with a dead augment, or an augment that fits with our comp but really does nothing for us if the lobby, weighs more AD. Um, and especially early game, Mystics really don't do a ton because a lot of damage early game comes from auto attacks and not as much from ability damage. Um, so I'd probably say the safest option is Celestial here.
okay. So yeah, because this kind of pigeonholes it a little bit, right?
Yeah, and I actually just did a session with someone where they picked Cavalier Heart as second augment, but it was okay because we just did a live session. But it was okay that we did that because we scouted around and we saw that no one was going for Deja. So then we ended up
Yeah,
getting Deja uncontested with five Cavaliers and we scraped out a first. But I don't like mate. So like this is okay if the lobby's playing AP. Like if you can scout and be 100% certain that people are playing AP, then fine, take Mystic Heart. But if you're not absolutely certain, which generally you can't be even with slammed AP items, um, it's always Celestial Blessing, I would say. Just as a safer pick, more flexible, does a lot more for more
gotcha.
comps. All right, so
No,
let's
that makes sense.
keep it chugging. Let's see what we can accomplish here. So let's see. So we have Frozen Heart. It's pretty bad. So
Yes.
yeah, not an ideal opener. All right, so personal opinion here. I think the
Mhm.
safest option. So if you just pause real quick to talk about this, um, I think the safest option here would actually just be to lose. The reason being is that you had 7 gold in the bank without leveling, and this board is not going to suffice in a win streak, right? So you
Right.
have no upgraded units, you have no items that are able to be slammed that are good, right? Like it would make sense if you had like Kiana and then you like level to play Kiana and like maybe you had Ezreal for like Tempest, and then you played like some kind of bodyguard, or excuse me, guardian frontline, and then slammed Frozen Heart on Kiana, that would have made a little bit more sense to level here. But being the fact that we had 7 gold, all we have to do is maybe sell this Lulu and make 10. Just lose, maybe kill a few units here and there with this board. Um, we would have had a huge gold advantage and a higher pick priority on carousel to maybe get something like Sunfire or Static Shiv.
Gotcha.
So if we're not in a winning position, right? Like if we don't have upgraded units, we never level and we don't make items, right? Like you just accept the fate that your opener is terrible, and then you just roll with it.
Okay. Yeah, because I think I got a little greedy. I wanted to level, try and save a little bit of HP, but I see what you're saying. I probably should have just sacked, made 10, and then just let it ride. Let him get a couple of stacks if trainer becomes viable, and then just kind of see what the next roll gives you, right?
So this is what I would have much rather saw here, right? Make 10, sell Lulu, sell Karma and Aatrox, and hold Ezreal pair.
Okay.
Because then we could have played Bruiser plus, Kiana for Tempest, and then maybe level 5 is a Swift Shot, and then we could have slammed Frozen Heart and maybe played for a win streak when we hit it. But from a position like this, leveling is no bueno.
Okay. Makes sense.
All right, so we can keep moving.
All right. Yeah, I think I did exactly what you said after the fact. Nah, I grabbed those two. Wait, what the hell did I literally just play this on camera? What the hell I did? I was trying to get my screen capture to work. All right, so obviously I lost that.
Yeah, so you definitely make 10 here for sure. Right? Like
Yeah.
Lulu 2 early game is not worth the gold. Holding Guardians here, not worth the gold, right? Because you already have established that you're playing Bruisers. So just holding extra frontline units, holding extra damage units that don't really do much, because then you're going to have to pivot your full board, is really not worthwhile. So if we sell Thresh, Braum here, and like Lulu, we make 10, and then we're chilling, right? Which we should have made 10 on 2-1, then we could have probably made like 20 here, or
Yeah.
something like that, or 15, and then had 20 by 2-3.
Yeah, and then you're getting a lot of extra gold.
Yeah, so which playing from behind, right? Like what we talked about in previous sessions, it's a seesawing effect, right? There's health and gold, and they go hand in hand. And this game is who utilizes their resources the best, right? And
Yeah.
the way in which you do that is you either trade HP for gold and then get strong later on when it makes sense to roll, or you trade gold for health, when you are strong, in order to stay strong. So definitely not a fan of not. So usually the benchmark here is always to have a minimum of 10 gold by 2-3. I would say that's just kind of a standard. Like you have to have it, or else you'll be poor the rest of the game. And
Yeah.
I think your stage two really makes a difference. I would say, generally speaking, your stage two is probably your most important stage, because if you really mess up your econ early and you don't hit your kind of benchmarks, or accelerate your econ making, you're gonna kind of be stuck in this "I'm weak and still poor" kind of thing. Um,
Yeah.
and you either want to be rich and weak or poor and strong, right? And then obviously if you're rich and strong, it's a high roll. So probably here it's Shiv or Sunfire Cape. I think it is just agreed
Yeah.
upon.
I think I took Sunfire on this one.
That's fine. I don't particularly like slamming Shiv unless we're starting off good. So I think Sunfire is kind of the safest option. I like this a lot. This is very good. I like this a lot.
And yeah, this was.
Jesus. Okay. Well,
I'm gonna pause that real quick.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, that was a bailout to a degree.
Yeah, so again, right? So this is what kind of traps players is, and I'm not saying this specifically towards you, but a lot of players around the same skill level as you, or even below, will see something like this and be like, "Oh, well, holding this many pairs and losing this much gold was worth it because hey, it paid off once." Whereas the goal here is to make consistency in your gameplay, right? So
Yeah.
ideally, right? Make like Lulu 2 and Lulu 1, like no diff, right? Like it's not a useful unit early game enough to be like I need to sink 9 gold into making this unit.
Yeah, it's really expensive.
Yeah, like is it good that you hit it naturally? Yeah, but I mean, I wouldn't again, we sack too much econ for the first, you know, 3 rounds to really justify buying this. Um, if we wanted to hold on to Lulu and certain pairs, we should have sold other things to make gold earlier. Um, but yeah, in a situation like this, right? Don't take this as like this is what I should do every game. The goal is to make econ and play the strongest board possible in the early game. And holding too many pairs and sacking econ when we're playing from a quote unquote behind position um, is is not good. And just because we got bailed out doesn't mean that this is the right play in your games.
Right. Yeah,
So
it just so happened that it worked, but you can't if you're relying on that, then you're not going to be consistent.
absolutely. So like what we talked about before, right? This game is a game of relying on guarantees. That's what makes someone a good player is I'm guaranteed to make 10 gold, I'll make 10 gold. You're not guaranteed to hit Thresh 2, Skarter 2, Kench 2 all in one shot. Right? Like that's not a guarantee. So we play for the
Yeah.
guarantees so that when we do have to roll and RNG it, our odds to hit are much higher when we need to roll. So and another thing just to touch on here is just the ping ponging of winning and losing. If we made 10 on 2-1 here and then just lost the first 3 rounds, we would have had like insane pick priority on carousel as well as a 3 streak. And then if we, let's say, hit a crazy upgrade like this, then we could have pivoted over to a 2 win into neutrals. And then we could have gone 6 on 3-1 to keep a win streak, get a 3 streak on 3-1 and then look to like maybe fast 7 on 3-5, fast 8 on 4-5. Right? So switching tempo up here is completely fine, but I think the moral of the story is really you just have to focus on keeping a streak of some sort, not sacrificing too much gold. Um, and yeah, so let's keep it chugging.
Yeah, because real quick before I hit this, so it was so you figure this is 9 gold. If this had stayed a Lulu one, that's 3, so that's 6. If I had lost streaked, if I had basically gone with a lost streak all the way through, that's an extra 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds of interest. So that's about 4, 8, 11, 13. So that's about 15 gold in interest that was lost too. So it was 15 gold minus the 2 Lulus. So that's about 21 in gold.
Right.
So I think I see what you're saying though, because then at Krugs it rolls the streak and everything into the next round. So then you're at like 60 plus gold, your 5 streak, and then you can actually roll on 3-1 if you need to stabilize.
Absolutely.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head there, man.
Yeah, I just kind of remember what we've said from the past sessions, so it makes it pretty easy.
So here, right, not a huge fan of making Thresh 2. So we don't have to pause and talk about it, but we already have 2 upgraded bruisers, right?
Yeah.
We essentially have just lost a gold for free by making Thresh 2, right? Because the only units that combine into a 2-star that you don't lose gold for is 1 costs, right? So if you 2-star a Karma, for example, it's worth 3 gold. If you 2-star Thresh, it's worth 5 gold. A Lulu is worth 8 gold, and etc. So making units into 2-stars that you're not going to play is not worthwhile. Um, Something that was also too a really good talking point here is we have a Senna on our bench and we just hit two huge up or actually three huge upgrades. We should have just leveled and played Senna instead of making the
Thresh
Thresh.
too.
Yeah, so here you just drop Thresh and Silas and make what 5, 8, 20. Yeah, you make 20 here for sure.
Yeah, I think I just got really greedy here.
Yeah.
I beat this guy.
So looking at this game right so far, the plan in my head already is like my board is actually not that weak now that I have Lulu 2, Kench 2, and Skarner 2. Like I have infinite frontline and I have some utility like with the bonus attack speed, right? If we sell and we
Right.
make econ here and we hit some pairs, we can definitely roll. But my plan here is definitely not rolling because we're not that weak, right? So like Senna pair is huge, right? So that could be potentially something we would want to roll for if we get another pair. So kind of like what we touched on in previous sessions is like Senna 2, like with no items, is kind of like pointless to roll for because you're spending 10, 15 gold potentially to upgrade that naked unit when we could be maybe putting that gold to better use to rolling later on. But if we have multiple pairs, like Tristana pair, Jinx pair, and like Senna pair, absolutely roll because getting 2 out of 3 of those upgrades are huge.
Yeah.
So I can tell that early game biggest thing here is just econ. We sacked way too much gold for no reason, um, and we're like really really poor. So like you should have about 40 gold right now.
Yeah. I think I did that for streak.
Okay, so probably here it's probably just another Kench 2 because it's cheaper, right? And also to to be honest, actually, it's probably just Kench 2 because it's cheaper. Not that it provides
Yeah.
anything better. It's just like it's cheaper and it's still strong, and we don't need to put all this money into Thresh when we're not getting Guardian out of it. I think
Yeah.
slam,
Because
I think slamming Shiv here too was a mistake. I think making Gwynsu is a lot better. Being actually Shiv is fine. Shiv is fine. I actually like Shiv. I take it back. I actually like Shiv.
I was like 50-50 on what to do
Yeah,
with that.
I think Shiv is a better standalone item than Gwynsu. I think. I think. Oh. Okay. Yeah. So I think augment choice here really depends on econ. So I think if we had more gold than what we did, I think rich get richer was the play. Like if we played the game, I for lack of a better term, more correctly.
Correctly.
Yeah. Then we just go rich get richer, just infinitely stack. We probably had 40 or 50 gold already. You get up to 70, you make 7 interest each round, and then you just fast 9 it and then just play whatever. So I think already the identifiable thing is how important early game econ is, especially when the augments put you in a position to do things like fast nines or fast eights and then cap out really quickly. Um,
Yeah.
Pandora's is not a bad choice, but I much rather have Celestial Blessing from this spot, having so much econ lost, because it gives you some combat advantage, and being poor, we need to stay strong, right? So the only way that we
Yeah,
do that is we take combat tailored augments. So it was definitely Celestial Blessing from this position, the way that the game was played, and it was rich get richer if we focused on econ early game.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's kind of what I was thinking. Because then looking back, instead of if I had taken CB1, it would have stacked CB1 and CB2, so I would have had a lot of flexibility there too.
hmm And then if we had CB1, we could have always rolled, maybe CB2 and maybe looked for something better potentially. Um,
Yeah,
Probably take CB1 or CB2 anyway, just because it's a very safe choice. But, maybe if we hit different units or something, maybe we could have rolled for something else. But, um, yeah, so in a spot like this, kind of just circling back, I think, again, playing Thresh here doesn't provide us a meaningful synergy. The hook is okay, don't take that out of context. It is still good, but I'd much rather have Jinx in here over Thresh because we have an upgraded frontline already, so we're not lacking anything. Um,
yeah,
and I think Pandora's at this point kind of just puts you in a bad spot because you're now forced to hold very expensive units in order to actually get something out of them. Um,
yeah. So Pandora's you can play if you're healthy econ wise, but it's actually a disadvantage if you're playing it from behind from an econ point of view, right?
Yeah, so Pandora's is kind of one of those things that is very, very good when you're ahead or when you're very rich. So like if you full opened, right, the first stage and you chose to go like Pandora's, and you were on like 5 loss or something and you're like 60 gold, you could just, roll like just a little bit on 3-2 to stabilize so you don't bleed out infinite. And then you could play for something like, Shio U2 or, very early on like a 3-5 roll down on level 7. Um, so, options here, uh, greatly depend on how the game is played, right? So there is optimal. Oh, it's definitely itis here for sure.
Yep, you're going to be disappointed.
All right. uh, okay,
Just
so
to get that out of the way.
yeah, so yeah, it's definitely just cut Kench and Skarner for
Yeah,
itis. Mogul's Mail
yeah.
plus
That was
Sunfire.
just. Yeah, I was just. I got. Yeah, I was just playing stupid greedy.
So let me ask you a question. I'm not sure if you quite recall, but why? What were we playing towards, or what were we looking for with this Pandora's bench with itis?
Um, I was thinking siphon,
Hmm.
but now looking back, the items clearly pointed itis along with the thresh too. Because if I wanted to get any value out of it, that's the only time I could have gotten value out of it.
Yeah. So this is looking like a major bailout game, right?
Yeah,
Like this is like the game literally gave you like infinite bailouts, and this is just not really capitalizing on them. Like it's okay to make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time when I play. It's why I'm not challenger, I'm grandmaster slash high masters. Like if I played the game perfectly, I'd be challenger. Right? So it's okay to make mistakes, and even challengers make mistakes. But like when the game gives you things like this, it really is just being like, okay, I don't have BT, I don't have Titans, I don't have any of those items. And I literally have an upgraded um, Guardian already. I can literally just play Itis right now, sell like literally my whole bench except my Cannoneers, start econing and play for like a fast 8 and just play Corky with like a standard Itis comp.
yeah, and that's now looking back. It's like if the game gives you that, you're going to get punished if you don't take it.
Yeah, and I mean this is really the benefit of VOD reviews, right? It's like you look back and you're what 4 or 5 streaking right now with 3, 4, 5 major mistakes already. So like the game is very forgiving in a lot of scenarios, but think about how much different the game could have been if we had the same kind of line of play but with more gold.
Yeah,
I mean, like this would be considered like an infinite high roll game. All right, so let's just touch on something here as well. Leveling at 3-5 is good. Um,
If you have the goal to do it.
if you have the goal to do it, but I would never level on 3-5 if I have less than 30 gold. And I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because if you lose this round, you are completely out of the game. Like if you lose your win streak, there is like now no opportunity for you to build your econ back. Like you have no streak, no gold, nothing. That's why a lot of people only level on 3-5 if they have 30 gold. So again, this kind of ties back to how we play the early game really impacts how we play later in the game. Um, because if we played a little bit more conservatively early, we would have a lot of gold right now in order to do the plays that we're doing, but a lot more safe.
Yeah.
So in that situation, I would have preferred, and I'm not saying this is the correct play, but this is, I guess, the lesser of two evils. I would have rather have seen you roll for Tristana and Senna 2 on level 6 than level and play a Siphon, which doesn't even give you 4 Bruiser or anything, um, like impactful. You know, like I much rather have seen like a
Yeah.
2-star Trist, 2-star Senna than putting in a third Bruiser and then please tell me we don't sell Kench. Oh lord. Yeah.
Yep.
So I mean this is okay, right? This is completely fine because this is a really good like learning opportunity for us. That like also too, it's definitely Silas over Thresh here because of Bruiser, and then we just cut Skarner for an extra unit. Um,
So is that over fresh too, even if you already had the two bruiser, or just because you cut Skarner? I'm guessing
I mean,
he's not.
I probably would have kept Kench, right, and then we could have cut Thresh and then played like 4 Bruiser somehow.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Like, I don't know. I think, like, again, kind of like what we touched on in previous sessions is like you have to really take like a long, hard look at selling 2-star units. Like selling Kench there, probably not the right decision to move the items to a squishier carry style kind of unit. Um, Now, if this was Itis, right, like you have upgraded Thresh, like, I'd consider selling, Skarner and um, Kench to put items on Itis, right? Because it's just like you're saving gold. Maybe it's not quite as strong, but you know, it suffices enough. But you also too are able to econ up. So,
Yeah.
but I would say generally speaking, if you have tank items like Sunfire Slam, and then you have like Gwinsu Shiv or something like that, if you don't have Siphon items, you don't play Siphon, right? Like unless the game literally hands you 3 Siphons in a shop, then like sure play it for like a few turns until you hit Itis, but I would never play like tank Siphon because the whole point of the unit is to be a carry. I think rolling here too is just very unnecessary. We're already very behind in gold, and the odds that you hit Siphon 2 here with like 10 gold is just not worthwhile.
Yeah, because I think that's like it's probably like a bad reflex, but I think that happens sometimes. I start playing a little more unnecessarily greedy whenever I have Pandoras, and I think that's just something that it's augment specific too. Where like if I didn't take Pandoras or hadn't been given it, I probably would have played that a lot differently. But I just kind of tumbled and got a little bit greedy.
Gotcha. I mean, as we can see though, right? Like Siphon is not a good tank. I mean, clearly from that fight, like if that's Itis, that unit never dies in that fight.
Yeah,
Please tell me you take hot shot. Oh man. Oh jeez. Okay, yeah, so it's definitely hot shot there, right? So
Yeah,
let's just talk about it for a second, just so we have some clarity. Your main source of damage now is no longer Siphon, right? At
right.
least, even though in retrospect we should have never gotten to this point because we should be playing Itis, and then it would be very clear, like, okay, well, I just have a tank. Well, let me just play Hot Shot because Corky's going to be my carry. In this situation, Siphon is really supposed to be a secondary carry, right? So your main tank when you play Siphon Corky is it's supposed to be your main tank is Silas, and then somehow I think you fit in three mage, I believe, with like Heimer and like Zoe at some point on nine, and then
Yeah,
your Siphon is kind of your secondary carry to your Corky. So you make Corky items first or Siphon items first, whatever you get, and then you focus on the other carries items next. Um, and with this being said, you have clearly itemized your Siphon to be your tank, right? So where's our damage coming from? It's going to be coming from Corky. So giving him more attack speed with two attack speed items is not very beneficial when we can just be getting raw damage out of that attack speed by taking Hot Shot.
yeah,
Good.
yeah. And not to mention it's true damage, so it's that much better. That makes yeah. I got you.
So TFT, right? Just kind of on this point, this is not a game like there is, I guess, quote unquote correct things, but I wouldn't say there's really incorrect decisions, right? Because people see certain lines of play differently, kind of keeping a standard of correctness. So, like, a standard of correctness being like, make econ early, right? Like, that's kind of like the correct, generally agreed upon thing to do. However, like maybe taking best friends in some alternate world is a line of play that someone else has seen. It's just in this scenario, it's not the most optimal play, right? So it's like
Yeah,
you have to optimize your play to kind of what your game plan is, and in certain spots, like there is only one correct answer, and in others, there's multiple. Taking best friends here would be fine if you didn't have tank items on Siphon and if you didn't have Shiv Slam, because then maybe you could go for like Hodge Gwinsu for Siphon. Best friends is probably not bad. Big friend, I think you got out of that too. I think was your other augment.
yeah. That was the other one.
So that could have been a line of play if we wanted to play more of a three trainer Siphon comp, right? But that just comes down to itemization, what really becomes the more quote unquote optimal play. So do you remember what you ended up placing this game?
Fifth.
Okay, so I think at this point everything else is kind of null and void in terms of late game because I think the game would have changed greatly and had a very, very drastically different outcome if it was played different early, right? So the reason we do VOD reviews is because your late game is greatly dependent on how the early game went. So, like, if you don't make econ and stuff early, right, and then you kind of end up in a position like this where you're super poor, you're kind of behind on levels, and like you're playing extremely greedy, even though we can't be right now, um, there is really no room to cap out your comp. Like, there is nothing more with 7 gold in our bank that we can do to, like, cap out our comp and play, like, a super expensive board. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So like with a Siphon 2, right? Like Siphon 3 should not be in our sights at the moment, right? Like there's clearly other people playing Siphon, so the likelihood of us hitting Siphon 3 is almost impossible at this point.
yeah. I think I was holding that for odds against other people. but that's I don't think that's not really correct play when you're that far behind, right?
Yeah, so you can hold units, right? Like if you're like ahead, like if you had 50 gold here or like 60 gold, right? And you have like a siphon in your shop, sure, hold siphon just so someone else doesn't hit it. But you generally don't want to like cripple yourself in econ just to cripple other people because eventually they're gonna hit. And then you're just going to be like so far behind in terms of gold and stuff that it's like unrecoverable. Right? If you're rich, you can always recover. You can always pivot. You can always play a different board. You can always play a different carry. If you're kind of stuck with one comp and you're behind, um, there's not really much that you can do if people hit.
Yeah, yeah. I think this guy just one shot my siphon.
Yeah. So he is Crown of Champions. It's unfortunate.
Yeah, and then Treasure Dragon, I didn't really optimize when I was rolling items on that either.
Yeah, so probably your goal here is either more frontline items to make Siphon tankier based off of this line of play. Like this would have been fine, like Warmogs plus Titans,
Yeah,
or you roll for quirky items.
yeah. I think I was rolling for quirky items, and I got greedy. I wanted to hit something for both because I remember exactly what I did here, and that basically went all the way down to nothing.
Yeah, I think at this point there's not really anything else to watch. I think we already have identified the issue with this game, and it's I think really I think the inconsistency in your placement, right, is not coming to down to let's say the units you're buying or the comps that you're playing. It's really coming down to your econ making and decision making on how much gold to spend and when to level.
Yeah, that's pretty much the main. That's like the crux of the issue.
So, I mean, clearly, right, this game would have gone so much differently if we had more gold.
Yeah, that or if I had just itemized a little bit differently. Like there's a number of different things that would have probably changed this from a fifth into probably a third.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't that because I played from so far ahead that there was. It's not saying it's inexcusable, but placing fifth when you had that much when you're playing that far ahead, if you econned even 10% better, then you have the ability to hit the last couple things you need and cap out the board.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think this is just an itis over Siphon game, and then just save and then just play for Corky. I think
Yeah,
that's really the diff. And then even taking Pandora's is not terrible because then you could have just, if you went that line of play with playing Itis, you could have just played for Corky 3 or Sona 3 or something like that.
and you're generating a little extra econ because I just bails it out with moguls, and
Mm-hmm.
if I had hit 5 shimmer, I think the item was Draven's Axe.
Yeah. Or even 3 Shimmer, I think, was Draven's Axe. So you would have had like an insane third Corky item.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do you have any questions about this game or things that maybe you're unsure about or?
No, that seemed. It was one of those games that when I played it, I had a feeling I was like, okay, I'm either going to get royally screwed on this, or I'm not going to be able to transition late game, or my late game board's not going to be strong enough to avoid bleeding out. And even though the game gave me a couple of bailouts, it's like I didn't take those bailouts.
Right.
And it's like obviously I shouldn't bank on that, but when the game actually is nice enough to give you a bailout, like you don't fight it.
Right. All right, man. Well,